Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Justin Young. He is Josh Tech. Welcome to Fastbreak Friday on a Thursday right here on X, otherwise known as Twitter, in our world, as we go through every single week the official visitors and unofficial visitors of note across the country from coast to coast. We do this every single Thursday as we prepare for Friday as guys hit the road for visits. And really, we're in the thick of recruiting season, as we always are this time of year. Now we're seeing these dominoes start to tip, which then in turn causes some programs to kind of shift and the focus becomes a little bit more narrow. But Josh Tech, this is a fun one because a lot of schools now are starting to celebrate the start of the season with some big visits, some big practices. Campus is starting to kind of come alive now that we're into October, which just means college basketball is about a month away from tipping off. The NBA actually tips off tonight. We're going to talk about that a little bit here at the back end of the show. But really, Josh Tech, when we look at this weekend, I feel like we've got the focus on a handful of programs across the country as we start to see things. When we look at a big picture, where's your telescope? Where is it headed this weekend as we look to the official visits for Fastbreak Friday?
Well, I think the one place you got to zero in on is Lawrence, Kansas, because it's late night in the fog this weekend, and it's been I guess to politely say, it's been a notorious event in the past. Now in a new world, this is still one of the hot spots of recruiting. This is one of the major recruiting events on any fall calendar, right? You go into the fall, you circle, all right, late night in the fog, countdown to craziness, Big Blue Madness, like some of these, big tentpole events. These are the ones you want to focus on because you know that these are going to be where a lot of the more significant recruits are going to be.
Yeah, I was trying to think. We did something at Kennesaw State back in the day about the Spec Landrum Center. So if you're an old head, you knew that's where we used to play at Kennesaw back in the day. I don't remember what it was called, but it was far from madness and it was not very well attended. But nevertheless, Kansas.
Hey, the Owls are back. It might be well attended if they do.
Now it is. But back in what year was that? That was 1999, 2000, maybe it was. A little different story back in the day when they were a Division II program. But nonetheless, yeah, Kansas. So let's start with who's not going to be there. Cooper Flagg will not be there, which kind of caused some conversation. Is it just down to Duke and Connecticut? And we've certainly hashed that out quite a bit here on the show. I've always kind of said, hey, listen, Connecticut, don't count them out. I feel like they're a real player here. I never really felt like Kansas was going to be a player here for Cooper Flagg. So I don't want to waste too much conversation on that. Listen, we've talked about them. LeBaron Phelan committed to them within the last week or 10 days. And now they've got a couple other big important wings, some big scoring wings that are also going to be on campus. Why don't you kind of run through it real fast about who will be there, who's scheduled to be there at least at Kansas.
All right, so here are the guys that we know are scheduled to be there per, multiple reports and all of this. We've done our dotting our I's and crossing our T's, trying to figure out who's going to be at this event. Flora Badunga is going to be there. He's already committed to Kansas, top 10 center in the class. So him paired with LeBaron is already a good class. But then you throw
the top center in the class.
The top center, yes. Yeah. And you throw in Raquise Passmore, who's a top 25 on in our rankings, and then Billy Richmond, who's a top 35 in our rankings. So Kansas still has some talent despite Cooper Flagg not going on his visit this weekend.
Yeah, Raquise Passmore is interesting, right? Because this is where we start to see the dominoes kind of shift, right? Isaiah Elohim commits to Arkansas here on Thursday, which kind of explains why prior to that we saw him cancel a visit to Arkansas because Elohim was going to commit to the Razorbacks, which now then switched Passmore to take a visit to Lawrence, Kansas this weekend. Yeah, it's interesting too, and you brought this up right before we hit record on this. There's a connection there, isn't there, between Raquise Passmore and LeBaron Phelan?
They both closed the travel.
I'm sorry.
They both closed the travel season playing for Team Thad together. So they went through all the summer camps together, whether that was Pangos or the NBPA Top 100 camp, and they went through the battles of Peach Jam and the end of the EYBL regular season together. So they've kind of been battle tested and road tested together. So that's just one to look out for.
Yeah, both of these guys too. I mean, I think when you look at these guys and their skill set, both of these guys are players that could average, 17 points a game, in college without any problem. I mean, I think these are both two of the top, off the top of my head, top 5 guys that can go out there and get a bucket in this class, like elite scorers in this class. Really similar in style. Raquise Passmore, I think, is a better shooter. Phelan's probably a little bit more shifty and getting to the rim with the dribble, but I mean, we're talking about 2 high-level guys that can go out there and get buckets. So it's interesting that that Kansas is still going to be a player here for both of those guys. And then with Billy Richmond, I mean, we've talked about it before. I mean, he's outside of our top 25, but a player that certainly is a player that NBA programs have an eye on them from when they've seen him in brief moments with film or in-person opportunities. Billy Richmond's not to shrink away from that conversation. That guy's an elite player as well. That's scheduled to be there in Lawrence, Kansas too. So it'd be fun to watch maybe if they play open gym with those guys, with these recruits coming on campus along with the current KU roster. It'd be fun to see what that looks like there in Lawrence. Have you ever been to Lawrence, by the way?
No, I want to go, but it seems like a pain to get to, if I'm being perfectly honest.
I was there for it was a Jayhawk Invitational. That's what it was called, a travel team event. And literally there was a massive tornado, no shocker. I think the event was in June maybe. And I was there, and I feel like it was Oscar De La Hoya against Manny Pacquiao, or Oscar De La Hoya against something. It was a huge fight that we went and watched the fight, and then the tornado came through. It was like, actually, I thought that was one of the few times on the road, like, I'm going to go meet the afterlife tonight. So it was kind of scary. So that was my last memory of being in Lawrence, Kansas. Beware of the fog took on a whole new meaning for me that weekend while in Lawrence. But nevertheless, that's certainly something to keep your eyes on. Rakeese Passmore, Billy Richmond, two uncommitted guys, going to be there in Lawrence for KU for late night in the fog. A big weekend there for Bill Self and his program. Who also has a big weekend, in a historical weekend, quite frankly, is the University of Georgia. I had to think about this. So go ahead and explain real quick who's scheduled to be on campus for the Dogs.
Yeah, so I mean, reports are that Asa Newell and Darian Reed, both top 15 guys, are going to both be on campus there, which is crazy, which is kind of crazy to think about. So you go ahead and you hit your history lesson for us.
I don't know the last time, and I'd have to. I mean, unless Anthony Edwards had, or Contavious Caldwell Pope had another like high visitor, maybe Caldwell Pope and Xavier Gibson, who ended up going to Florida State, was a high level prospect at the time, visited together. But I'd have to go back and look. The last time I remember like this level of player being on campus at UGA for basketball was Mike Mercer and Lewis Williams. I mean, way back in the day, 2003 probably. So with Asa Newell down in Florida, Darian Reed, a Georgia native that's out prolific prep. Mike White is not pulling punches right now, and these are two significant guys. And one of these guys, I'm confident, if not both, will commit to Georgia. I'm confident in that. One of those guys. I feel more confident probably in Darian Reed. I think Gonzaga is a real player there for Asa Newell. We're going to keep our eyes on that one. But man, what a significant weekend for the Dogs getting out there. Football team's not the only one that's getting stuff done. Mike White and his program certainly pulling no punches to make sure they get some players to get out there at Stegman. To be a part of that Bulldog program. So big weekend, historical. If you're watching this, if you can think of a better weekend for basketball, let me know. Like I'd actually kind of racking my brain to think about when was the last time that this many like real 5-star guys that were legitimate contenders to be on campus.
Yeah. Well, Mike White's pulled in a lot of talent when he was at Florida and all that. So it's not surprising to see, I guess, him pulling it. I guess it's just Georgia's never been like, like that. Like they've never been like one of those like elite recruiting schools. So yeah, you're right. This is just kind of shocking to see this many 5-star kids on campus.
Well, and honestly, it's like so on brand for Mike White. Just quietly does his business and doesn't really get caught up in all the fanfare. That's a program that doesn't go out there to make sure that there's all these graphics created and whatnot. They just quietly do their work and try to get these guys on campus, and more important, try to get them commit to the Dogs as well. So certainly something to watch there. Out there in Athens. Should be a beautiful weekend for football and for great visits as well. Another visit or campus that I'm kind of keeping my eyes on is USC. USC is quietly they only have one commitment right now, and it's Liam Campbell out of Idaho, really an Orange County native that's up there at Boise, my favorite basketball city in the West right now, up there in the state of Idaho. But they've got two players from the state of Utah actually coming down, and Brody Kozlowski and Jackson Johnson, both Utah prospect teammates, are scheduled to take a visit down to USC. So that's a significant one to kind of keep your eyes on. And both players are guys that right now we're getting prepared for National Signing Day. I've got a story that I'm working on called The Sustainable Players. And I think these are players that are sustainable players, guys that will stick around, that'll help build your roster out, that the odds of them transferring are probably lower. So two players had a tremendous season with that awesome Utah prospects team that Tim Davis built out there in the Salt Lake area. So Brody Kozlowski and Jackson Johnson both taking trips down to visit the men of Troy at USC. I want to go see Caleb Williams in person too, man. That'd be fun.
Yeah,
Have you follow any college football at all?
Yeah, I mean, right now Louisville's 5-0, so I've been following that. And they play top 10 ranked Notre Dame at home this weekend, so that'll
Yeah.
be interesting for me to follow. But yeah, I mean, tangentially, like honestly, it's kind of baseball playoff season. Basketball's always got stuff going on, so I follow as much as I can.
Well, the dying days of the Pac-12, of course, it's one of the best years for college football. The Pac-12, naturally, that's just kind of how it works. So, let me kind of just go down our list a little bit. It's a bit of a quiet weekend compared to other weekends as far as visits are concerned, at least stuff that we've been able to find, stuff that we've been able to report, but some notable ones that we want to kind of go through. We talked about, 3 of the campuses that we really like a lot. I think Georgia State actually has got a guy that's really important. Brendan Liu is the type of player that the Panthers have been able to successfully land and recruit. And I know that's a player you love, Brendan Liu, don't you, out of Alexander High?
Yeah, I mean, he's been kind of a prospect that everyone in Georgia has kind of had their eyes on for a long time. He was, physically mature from a young age, and his game, around his, physical traits has developed around it with skill and all of those kind of developable traits. And this is one that I feel like if Georgia State lands this one, this is going to be a really good one for them. It's just great to keep a really talented in-state player at home. Yeah. And he's a guy that visited Georgia. He's visited high major programs, so he's got no shortage of offers. So if the Panthers can get this one, that'll be great for my alma mater.
I also wonder too if Georgia State's also in the business of bringing guys on campus for that there's no secret that they're one of the best second landing spot rosters in the country with so many guys from Georgia that transfer back home. There might be a play there as well long term. So Bryce James, LeBron James' son, taking a visit to Ohio State. I don't know how much we ever really pay close attention to that, but with Bronny took a visit there with mom and dad. So Bryce James is scheduled to take an unofficial visit to Ohio State this weekend as well. So that's certainly notable. Just kind of moving down the list here. Iowa's got some important players. Eric Reeb. Forgive me if
I go with Reeb. He feels like an Iowa player. You know what I'm saying? Like that fits. Like that looks like that just kind of feels like it fits really well.
Malachi Moreno have been busy on the visit trails as well. He's going to be scheduled there. Nick Kamenia is scheduled to go to Gonzaga. Harvard Westlake kid, a guy that I've loved. I've seen him for the last couple of years. Tremendous player. You mentioned before that Trent Perry just cut his list down to what, 6?
Yeah, 6, and Gonzaga was also on that. So it's a pretty good, interesting weekend for the Zags at least.
Yeah, no question about it. Trey McKinney visiting, scheduled to visit Missouri. I could double check that one. I don't know if that one. Missouri, I feel like they've got 20 commitments already. And then last
25, so that might be.
Yeah. Sorry.
And then also Alex Alston's also visiting Ohio State. Another 25 visiting Ohio State.
I'm moving too fast. VJ Edgecombe, our last guy, going to Baylor. So certainly, when I talk about some of the best scorers, Rakese, LeBaron Phelan, and VJ Edgecombe, I'd put VJ right there in that conversation too. So
yeah, and VJ is really just now starting his visit trail. Like a lot of guys have already concluded. That's why it's kind of like I don't know. I guess we would say a slower week because a lot of guys have already gotten their visits out of the way. But VJ is just getting started. Like if you look through the rest of his calendar, it's just kind of loaded with visits coming up.
I feel like he's got the power because of his position. I think in this class to kind of take his time. If I was a top 10, top 5 guy, I would be like, I don't care about anybody else. They want me. They need me more than those guys. So that'd be my play as well.
Yeah, and I also think a lot of it lines up with like some of the aforementioned preseason events. Like I believe he's going to the Duke one and maybe the Kentucky one as well. So there's a couple of those things that he's just probably saving up for.
We saw Lil Wayne lead Colorado out of the tunnel. Like college basketball's way ahead of this, man. For like these Midnight Madness types of things, we had so many guys over the years.
I mean, let's go back to the aforementioned Late Night in the Fog with Snoop Dogg and all the controversy surrounding that.
Snoop Dogg, that would have been amazing. This is a fun fact. You are not going to believe me when I tell you this. So this was a long time ago. I was working at another.com, and it was Final Four. Yeah, it was Final Four in Atlanta. So this might have been, I don't remember what year it was, but I was asked. 13? No, this was earlier. Maybe because I just
remember that one because Louisville was there.
Gosh, I had a camera. It was like, I wish I had like a box to show you. It was huge, man. It was this huge like thing that you had to put a floppy disk in. Like that was my first digital camera. Yeah, exactly. And Dan Dickow was on the 3-point shooting contest. So that must have been 2003. Anyways, whoever was, I can't remember who was running it, but whoever was running the 3-point shootout and the dunk contest, they had a judge drop out of the dunk contest. And so they asked me to be a part of the dunk contest judging because I was a local writer along with another TV guy. Oh man, I'm totally drawing a blank. Now he does high school sports. He's on Channel 11 forever. And I've been gone too long. Anyways, great dude. I'd see him on the road all the time. Awesome guy. And awesome enough, I forgot your name. I'm so sorry because I'm getting old. The other two judges, you ready for this?
Yeah.
Lil Wayne, who was like not blown up yet, who was on a different planet when he was judging, and Michael Vick, who was king of Atlanta.
Yeah, I was about to say it.
So that was a fun, and they were looking at me like, who the hell is this guy judging the dunk contest with us right now?
That's cool.
Yeah,
that's a great story to have in your back pocket.
Yeah, Wayne was he was on Saturn at that night, but nevertheless, one thing that I'd noticed this weekend that was interesting, and in fact, I actually want to pull it up on Twitter. Have you seen when guys take visits? I feel like it's more of a photo shoot than it is a visit. And you know, they go in the locker rooms, they put on the gear. There's all like these backdrops, like it's a huge ordeal. What do you think about those? Do you have an opinion on this?
Not really. I mean, it's cool. It's exciting. I mean, people like getting their pictures taken, and it's just cool to see like, hey, this is what you're gonna look like when you commit here, and like here's all the, I don't know, it's just a nice bell and whistle to have with everything. I mean, I have no problem with it. I don't really have any opinion on it either way.
Here it is. I'm going to read it here. Photo shoots. The Football Bowl Subdivision Oversight Committee introduced legislation into the pilot legislative process to prohibit, during football prospective student-athlete unofficial visits, institutional involvement in arranging photographs or photographing the prospective student-athlete and those accompanying with the prospective student-athlete. So basically, if you're an unofficial visitor, football will bleed over into basketball in any sport. Because now I see this with track, I see it with all the collegiate sports. But they're basically saying, like, if you're there on an unofficial visit, maybe official visits you can go do it, but unofficially, like, you can't just come here and get your photo shoot for social media and really not consider us and take off. So that was an interesting thing that I saw pop up, and you know, I do like the photo shoots. I think they're pretty cool.
I mean, I don't know. It's just kind of fun to see, you know, I don't know.
It's kind of like when the NCAA came out and said you basically can't spend $7 on a bagel and cream cheese and like all this dumb shit that like, who cares? I feel like it's, you know, the no fun zone once again, kind of stepping in and eliminating. Our colleague Eric Bossi did say, he said, you know, actually he was in favor for it because it like eliminated like a lot of unnecessary visits where guys were just kind of taking visits that didn't really matter. They just want to go get the photo shoot for the gram.
I could see that. Like you kind of feel like Duke isn't actually recruiting you that hard, but you're, you know, they're having you on campus and you take the picture and it's just kind of for clout. I can get that perspective too.
Like, I went to Oregon, so like I would have back in the day, like this wasn't even a thing. We saw Donald Duck on the helmet when I was there. But like, I would love to get a picture with Puddles, like the mascot. I think it'd be amazing. Like for posterity's sake, it'd be great. Nevertheless, all right, I'm rocking the Suns hat today. You want to know why?
Let's hit me with it.
NBA season tips off tonight. The first preseason game of the year tips off tonight. The Timberwolves. Who's it playing? The Timberwolves. Anthony. Yeah, that's all I care about. I want to go see Ant-Man play. The Timberwolves. Bear with me. I should have had this here. Yeah, the Mavericks and Timberwolves. How can I forget? First preseason game of the year. I was talking to my brother. They play at Detroit. The Suns do on Sunday. Them against Monty Williams. So you know I love the NBA. I'm an NBA guy. I watch it every single night that it's on. It takes over our house. My wife has come to love it. My little guy is going to start to love it. When he came out of the womb back in February, my guy was locked in. So I'm excited for this year. So it got me thinking about this class of 2024 a little bit with the thoughts of the NBA. And I asked you, and I did it as well. We haven't talked about this. I want to hear your 5 guys in this class of 2024 that you are most excited to see potentially play in the NBA. And I've got one. I've got a list as well. Maybe we can kind of play a little conversation. Pickleball.
Let's just go back and forth with it.
Yeah.
Since you are the NBA guy of us two, why don't you start?
Okay, that's fair.
If we do like a Mountain West basketball late night draft, I'll start. But since you're the NBA, guy of us two, you could start.
I think we need to have that conversation. I'm going to start off with VJ Edgecombe. I think he's so exciting. Like, he's my kind of guard. I was in love with his style of play the first time I saw him in person. He's got that kind of flair. He's got that type of excitement. He reminds me a lot of Benedict Mathurin. That's now one of my. I really love him at Indiana. I was a huge fan of him.
That's a good call. I like that.
U of A, like tons of athleticism. Got a spirit to him that's just infectious that guys want to play with. I think he's going to be a very, very fun NBA player. And quite frankly, listen, we've talked about this class before. Obviously, with Cooper Flagg in it, Ace Bailey is a guy that's up there. But VJ Edgecombe, when it's all said and done, the way the game is played now, it favors guys more like VJ Edgecombe than any other position. So I'm excited to see where his trajectory goes. And he's my kind of player that I love in the NBA right now.
Yeah, no, I like that. I like that one a lot. I kind of had a feeling that you'd pick him at some point, so I left him off my list for that reason.
You like the player comp?
What's up?
You like the player comp?
I did. That was a good one. I wasn't expecting Benedict Mathurin to be brought up, but I do enjoy that one a lot. Loved him at Arizona.
Yeah, one of my favorites. I love that guy. Anyways,
yeah, he's great. I'm going to go with a guy that we've already talked about a little bit, and this is maybe a little bit off the board pick, just because it's not as obvious. But Billy Richmond, guy that's he's our top. I think he's our number 35 prospect. So that kind of puts him a little bit off the map. But I think his game, his athleticism and his defensive prowess really translate well to the NBA. And I think at some point in time he's going to be an exciting player at that level.
I think you're right. I think he's going to be a player that we need to revisit once we kind of get in the season and see some of these high level.
Yeah, I think with him, I think it's just more of a matter of getting more eyeballs on him and seeing more of a complete resume. With a lot of these guys, we've seen them all over the place. We've seen them ad nauseum. It feels like we've seen a million times. With Billy Richmond, I feel like I've only gotten to see him at a handful of EYBL events, and there's so much going on at those events that sometimes you can't really lock in. So that's just a guy that I think we're going to really change our opinion on, or not change our opinion on, but maybe elevate our opinion when we see more of a resume build out.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. All right, the Milwaukee Bucks have certainly been in the news with Dame Lillard getting traded there. My player comp for this player is Chris Middleton, so I'm going to bring up Darion Reed right here. I've been a Chris Middleton player comp for Darion Reed for quite a long time now. I saw Chris Middleton a ton as a prospect coming up with the Carolina Celtics out of Charleston, South Carolina, before he went to Texas A&M. I think Darion Reed's actually a better player than Chris was coming out of high school. But the player comp, I think, is pretty strong because I think Darion's getting better as a shooter. I wouldn't call him a super freak athlete, but a good enough athlete that he can cover a lot of ground.
Yeah.
A good interchangeable guy. And I mean, listen, Chris Middleton's been an all-star. He's been a contender on a major team in the NBA. Guys getting paid. And so I think Darion Reed, I don't know. I think his ceiling is very similar to what we've seen with Chris Middleton. So I'm excited to see. Plus, I just love Darion. I just think he's a great player and a guy that we've seen a ton really do the work and kind of rise up from the Augusta area to now a big national top 10 prospect that's being recruited by everybody out in the country. So Darion Reed checks in as my second guy I would love to see in the NBA.
Yeah, I'm a big time Darion Reed fan too. I've been a big fan of his since I first started watching him as a freshman, and yeah, couldn't agree more. I'll keep the trend going. For my second pick, I'm going to go with Ace Bailey, keeping it local here to Georgia. I think his best days are still ahead of him. I think he's already otherworldly talented right now. He can do a lot on the floor, but I think he's the guy that's going to get better. Like when he gets into college, faces tougher competition, gets the college weight room and all that stuff, all of the bells and whistles that come along with taking advances in level. He's going to be a guy that keeps developing and keeps growing. I think he's going to be a one and done guy. I think when he gets to the NBA, by the time he's, I don't know, however old, we're going to be seeing the best Ace Bailey. And when we see the best Ace Bailey, I think we're going to be seeing a superstar.
I hope we see Ace Bailey get drafted to a team that plays Jabari Smith. I'd love to see Jabari Smith and Ace Bailey. Two different styles of play, but it'd be cool to see two Peach State guys go head to head in their respective positions. That'd be fun, man. It'd be really, really fun.
Yeah, that would be a really fun matchup to see at the high school level.
It would have been awesome. Yeah, let's get in that super time machine. And
I got to see Jabari Smith play Scoot Henderson. That was pretty cool.
That's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one. One of my all-time favorites is the Jabari Walker Kessler game that Walker Kessler got at Woodward in the playoffs. It was awesome. It was an awesome game. Carter Knox is my next guy. And I just, again, I love big wings that can score, that can shoot. Like that's my style of player. And now he's at OTE. We're going to see him a lot on their platform. They're going to be playing all over the place. Carter Knox, I think he's got an NBA type of game, a little bit more than his brother Kevin Knox did. Actually, Kevin, is kind of bounced around already in the NBA. I think Carter Knox is a little bit more fluid, a little bit better of a scorer, or is a better shooter than his brother was. So I'm excited to see what trajectory Carter Knox goes. But it wouldn't shock me to see him being a guy that gets drafted inside, top 20 in the draft coming up. So, all right, paddles back to you, man.
All right, I'm going to go with the most obvious pick of all time. I have to go with Cooper Flagg. And this is just because I want to see how the number one prospect translates to, the next level. Like anytime there's going to be a number one player, we're going to be, when we do this next year with Cameron Boozer, when we do this the year after with probably AJ Devansta, I'm probably going to pick him because I just need to see how the number one guy translates to the next level.
I think every guy in the NBA wants to see how he translates too. They've certainly seen him all over social media. A lot of guys have played against him in different, elements, and obviously Nike's brought him in for different workouts. So Cooper Flagg, certainly the most interesting amateur there is in the world right now. Now that Wemby's in the NBA. So by the way, I can't wait. The Suns play San Antonio right out the gate. I cannot wait to see him play.
Yeah, that's exactly why you have that kind of like, oh man, Wemby is going to be appointment viewing. I don't watch a ton of NBA basketball or not as much as you certainly, but I'm going to be tuned in for, at least the first few of his games to see like what he looks like early on.
I told my wife, I said, we've got to go just so you can see Kevin Durant and Wemby on the same court at the same time, which is, I don't know if you've ever seen that long of a human being. It's like aliens on the court. All right, my next two are, I wouldn't call deep cut. Like, I don't think Zoom Diallo is a deep cut guy, but like speed wins in the NBA. We've seen that with look at De'Aaron Fox and John Wall and Russell Westbrook. Not saying that Zoom Diallo's game is like those guys, but Diallo's game is predicated on speed. And then if you're a guard, can you dribble? Can you get to the rim? Can you touch the paint? Can you break guys down off the dribble? Like that's what NBA guards can do. I think Zoom Diallo is a player that I'm really curious to see how his next 2 years go and how it projects him in the NBA. And if you're fast, and if you're a guy that can do these types of things, you'll have a spot in the NBA. Like I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with teams in the NBA that just are looking for a backup point guard that has speed. Like look at Jose Alvarado. Like the guy's going to stick because he's got speed and he's pesky. Like he can play that type of role. Like there's players like that will stick in the NBA. I think Zoom Diallo will be a fun player to kind of chart. And if he makes it, I think he'd be kind of a fun player to really kind of see how that plays forward moving ahead.
I completely agree. And he was an honorable mention just in case you and I overlapped. So he was on my list as well, just as a backup, just in case we had the same players. And I'm a big fan of Zoom. Next guy I got to go with is another kind of obvious one, but I just really want to know once again how this kind of player translates to the next level, and that's Flory Bidunga. I feel like the typical big man is fading, in the NBA. Like did Oscar Tshiebwe get drafted? If he did, it was late in the second round, right? Like, I think Flory maybe is a better, prospect athletically, defensively than Oscar is, but still, like, he is pretty much what he is, and that's just a very good big man, classic center, classic big man. And I just kind of want to know how he fits into this whole landscape of the evolution of basketball. That's kind of
like there's so many players like Bismack Biyombo, was a really attractive guy, obviously played for the Suns. DeAndre Jordan's always on a roster, like that type of guy that I'll always find, like, Clint Capella, like these types of guys, like they'll find a place and stick. Like that's the modern day big man in the NBA, right? Like just block shots, rebound, run the floor. That's what Flory Bidunga is as well. All right, my last guy, I'm going a little deep cut here, actually pretty deep cut comparative to the industry. I've been writing a lot of stuff, getting ready for the signing day period coming up, and then I highlighted Clemson. And the reason I highlighted them is because during Brad Brownell's time there, he's had a lot of guys that have been drafted that have been looked at by teams in the NBA. Hunter Tyson most recently was drafted. Amir Sims, Jerron Boston, KJ Daniels. Like there's a lot of guys that have played at Clemson quietly that either got drafted, had a cup of coffee in the NBA. And I think Dallas Thomas actually, is like a top 75 guy in the class. And every year there's always a handful of guys that are kind of in that space in the national recruiting rankings that get drafted. I think Dallas Thomas has an opportunity to be that type of player as well. And even look at the Hawks. Like look at the Atlanta Hawks. Their whole rosters is like 6'7" guys that are in, like Sadiq Bey, and DeJounte Murray's a little different style of play, but like totally drawing play Virginia, DeAndre Hunter, and like these types of guys, and like they find ways to get on rosters and stick. And I think Dallas Thomas has the makeup to be that kind of guy. And we've seen Clemson develop that type of guy. So that's my deep cut guy on this list that could be an NBA player. And I would be excited to see him play, even if it is just like summer league and beyond. But Dallas Thomas, I'm very, very high on Dallas Thomas. So I'd be interested to see what the trajectory looks like for him. Your last guy.
That's a great one. My last guy is not a deep cut at all, but he's a guy that I think will play his best basketball in the spacing and freedom that the NBA has. He's a bucket getter, and it's Trey Johnson. At one point in time, he was the #1 overall player in the class. But I think just the way he plays, his style of play, his ability to go get a bucket, his ability to hit shots, it translates so well to the NBA. I think when he has all that freedom, he's going to be at his best.
Yeah, I've struggled for a long time like a player. I'm a player comp guy. I love
players. For sure.
And like I've always asked, like, who is he? I've asked Texas people, and I've always kind of come back to this in my own quiet space reports I've sent the NBA teams. I called him Eric Gordon Light, and Eric Gordon's a tremendous player. And I know I was kind of talk about Suns. I just see those guys a lot. Eric Gordon Light, that would be a tremendous compliment. Eric Gordon's had a hell of a career. Eric Gordon was a top 5 guy coming out of high school, one of the best high school players I've ever seen, actually, and has had an unbelievable career on getting buckets. Trey Johnson, for me, I like that one as well. So this was fun. I actually didn't anticipate it being this long of a conversation.
It's a great talking point. I mean, there's a lot of players in 2020 for it being a kind of quote unquote down class. There's a lot of players that are interesting.
Yeah, I think the NBA season is going to be really interesting too. I cannot wait. I know we talked about Wemby. I cannot wait for the Scoot era in Portland with them.
Oh, me too. That's gonna be cool.
Yeah, I think Scoot's gonna be so much fun to watch. I'm so excited to see him play. And anytime we got a local guy, particularly a Marietta guy, I cannot wait to see how his career plays out there in Portland. So this is good stuff, Josh. There's been some commitments that we're going to talk about, of course, on Monday. Some big ones. We talked about one here, Isaiah Elohim. We'll talk about that a little bit more coming up on Monday. A couple other guys. Who else committed? We got a couple others. Jace Butler, one of my favorite guys in the class, going to Illinois. I've got some thoughts on that. Emmanuel Stephen already off the board to Arizona. So we're going to talk about that on Commitment Catch-Up on Monday. We'll wait and see what happens over the course of the weekend. So, but anyways, if you got this far, 32 minutes in, wow, it's a lot longer of a show than I anticipated. We appreciate you watching here on Twitter and, of course, over on YouTube, wherever you find this on the internet. So we appreciate it. For Josh Tech, I'm Justin Young. We'll see you next time. Go watch some NBA tonight. Have some fun. Take care.